Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming on more Monster Hunter Wilds talk. It's Title Update 3 and it's time for us to take a look at the relevance of the weapons compared to their popularity in our community. So Josh put up the poll, let you vote for up to 3 weapons that you currently most like to play. And we're going to look at the results, working our way up from the bottom to the top. And then we're going to do a comparison to March, not long after the game launched, to see how things have changed within our community. Starting from the bottom, we have light bowgun and heavy bowgun. Not a real shock there, but it is interesting to see that light bowgun is the least most popular weapon in our community. This is a top performing weapon that's been near the top or at the top multiple times throughout the rankings, so the weapon can't be blamed on performance. Something about the bowguns in Wilds just doesn't hit for me. It doesn't matter how good the performance is, how great that output with element is, or the whole burst step mechanic, or aiming for the best hit zones, which to be fair is great. The fact that it's got better and more varied, like, spread's been great for Omega specifically, by the way. In Rise, you had these crazy mechanics, the movement, the unique feel, that would separate the two bowguns from one another. I remember in World, the heavy bowguns were these incredible powerhouses of utility. They're like snipe shots and the mortar fire. Meanwhile, in Wilds, I basically don't see them. Between the two of them, they almost have the same resource mechanic, and at least heavy bowgun got some interesting stuff with the guard, allowing it to perfect guard, trigger the clashes. It technically has an offset. At least it's got something there. Where light bowgun is so simplistic by comparison, even if it's the better weapon between the two in terms of the rankings. So I think it's a real shame, but it does show that the current design of the bowguns just isn't that popular. Next up then, we have 6.1% of the vote, which is switch axe. And this is really sad, but makes complete sense. This is a heavy fall off. We're going to compare obviously to the launch of the game and where the popularity of the weapons were and how different that is. The full release spam gameplay just isn't it long term. It's too repetitive and it's too simple compared to all the interesting and even Rise where we had the morph attack combos and the morph loop there. And to be fair, there was a lot of countering going on in Sunbreak there, but it was restricted. You had the wire bugs, the timing and the resource management you needed to do with that. The heavy reward for that. But yeah, the morph attacks being a lot better, a lot more relevant. So you're using more of the kit. Zero sum, discharge, attaching to avoid certain attacks was really fun and really effective. Very clutch at certain times instead of the counter. None of that's there with switch axe. It's pretty much just full release spam as much as you can. And in between that, you amp up as much as possible and probably do some sword counters. You're not doing a ton of offsets, especially in the context of Omega, where that's very unlikely. Above it then is a little bit of a progression of popularity for Hunting On, with 6.14% of the votes. Hunting On is near the bottom, it's true, but it was basically at the bottom above the bowguns in the past. This is an ever so slight increase for the weapon, and I think that's great. You look at the speedrun ranking stuff where it's destroying Omega, a top choice if you can play it, but the relevance to a team is amazing, especially in that context. They made it easier to place the bubbles, you got 3 down, they reverb your attacks, super good for the hit zones. It helps with the rocket punch by taking damage and interrupting them, super good. They got this whole hilt stab mechanic added, so like a mini greatsword shoulder tackle. It's in arguably the best state I've ever seen Hunting On, and its performance is backing that up. And the popularity is starting to rise, which is nice to see. Polar opposite now, we have the bow. Popularity has been an extreme fall off for the bow. Extreme. Well, it's just in a lesser loved state. It's one of the least updated weapons since launch, and the few that it's had have been kind of nerf related. It's actually one of the few weapons not touched in the major weapon changes of Title Update 2 and the mid-Title Update 2 patch. So I would say bow is one of the weapons that deserves some attention more than others, at least in maybe a mid-major patch of Title Update 3 or Title Update 4, despite the fact that the mechanics I think are great with the weapon. Maybe it could do with some slightly faster animations on certain attacks. I don't think it needs much, but it needs something. Okay, now we get into the lances. This is absolutely insane. We've got gunlance and lance right next to each other, roughly towards the middle of the pack. Lance has 6.57% of the votes, with gunlance with 6.3A. So currently in our community, based on this poll, lance is more popular than gunlance, but it's also more popular than bow, Hunting On, switch axe, and both bowguns. Who are you people? Last I checked, there was about 5 total lance players, and now there's like 50 of them. It's getting out of hand. Why is this in this context? I think it's been boosted a bit more than normal because of Omega, where Lance is clearly like a top choice for tanking it. Maybe many people have picked it up for that purpose. We can all agree that Omega, when he has enmity on someone, the fight is so much more manageable. And with Lance, you can set up proper guards, guard up 3, have some divine blessing, evade extender for your movement because you don't want to get stuck guarding at the wrong time. You can be a real menace that can take on pretty much anything. And this is all off the back of major Lance improvements, where they've made the moveset and the options you have specifically more interesting and better, rather than just output buffs, which it also got across the board. Despite this fact, Lance remains the literal worst weapon for DPS, even with Omega, and especially to solo it per the speedrun rankings. It goes to show though, that output isn't everything for a weapon, and I think Omega again is the specific reason that Lance is so popular. Meanwhile, you got gunlance just below that. It was ever so slightly more popular in the past, but not majorly. I do think this version of Wild's gunlance is fantastic. I love the DPS loop. I love the playstyle. I love the little movements you can do with the shelling. But at the same time, I do feel like the proper DPS combo with the stake, as satisfying as fun as that is quite a long combo. We've seen gunlance shine the most against things like gore magala, where it's a top running weapon, where you can take a monster that doesn't have amazing hit zones for melee and ignore that with the shelling, right? If you position the monster in a place where it's in a tight environment, you can absolutely smash it with those explosions and shells. Maybe with Omega, it's a lot more mobile, the legs move around, it's awkward, you're basically forced towards the front. Maybe gunlance finds itself being a tank like Lance is, but maybe it's just not as good or reliable, let's say. Because with Power Guard with Lance, God is that helpful, and Gunlance just doesn't have that. It's got just the basic shield, and it's very heavy despite that. So I do think the context of Omega has played a role here, but that is interesting. Next up we have Longsword with 6.59% of the votes. I think this also makes sense. I think Longsword is in an incredible state in Wilds, and it's only got better with the rebalancing that they've done to try to address aspects of the weapon. So your special sheath counters and in general countering is more reliable after the patch that addressed that. It comes out a little bit quicker, the frames are a bit better. Then you've got the whole Spirit Blade 1, Crimson 1 repeat combo being incredibly effective, and they're trying to address that by buffing other aspects, trying to encourage you with specifically element as well for the full Crimson combo. Everyone's still doing Spirit Blade 1, Crimson 1, it's a bit repetitive. At least in the Omega fight, there's a bit more of a reason to use the Helmbreaker, to iframe certain attacks. But I think one big part here is that Longsword is bloody hard to use against Omega. Even if, with incredible performance when played well, the results are insane. It is a top weapon for soloing as well. You can evade every attack with the perfect evades, the countering, and the multiple countering options you have. But the skill check to do that is high. Above it though, this is crazy. Hammer. 6.94% of the votes, Hammer is above it. And we can definitely agree that Hammer is 1000% more fun after the changes of the previous updates, where we've seen a major rise in popularity here and in general for the players. Cotton is our resident Hammer, hunting horn player, uses SNS, plays quite a few weapons right, but since the major updates with Hammer, I've seen this dude basically 90% play Hammer. I've never seen him stick to a weapon so long, so I think that says a lot. Mighty Charge is amazing, the multiple offset options are awesome, the bonk and output just feels great. I think it's in a very solid position, and so its popularity, it doesn't surprise me. But above that then, we get into the top 5, starting with Insect Glaive at 7.89% of the vote. Insect Glaive found itself in a strange position right as we were going into the launch of the game. The beta had people interested, but the claw grip, the weird charging attacks while doing other combos, it had people a bit upset. Especially with the fact that you couldn't do the whole vaulting dance, the bouncing in the air thing, and it wasn't encouraged as an aerial playstyle. At launch, they obviously made that major change, reintroduced the vaulting dance, gave some benefits to aerial gameplay, made some adjustments, but at the same time, which I thought was really cool, stuck to their guns on what they think this Insect Glaive is and how they're not going to rechange all of the keybinds and flow of the weapon. They think it's good, they think it's strong, and they've had great feedback. So I respect that devs can say, no, this is what we want it to be, we think it's great, you need more time with it. And so, at the time, Insect Glaive found itself very popular with the walking back of different mechanics and the aerial stuff, but keeping that new core. And now, 6 months on, it's still one of the most popular weapons in our community. It's undeniably still strong as hell against any monster that lets it do that flying up super move, dumping all the essence. into good hit zones. That's a problem against certain monsters for sure, but for most of Wilds, it's been one of the top runners. And that's again the case with Omega because you can kind of fly up into the knee joint where you're doing insanely good DPS. So it's been very good for Omega, so maybe its popularity for that makes sense. Next at 4th place then we have Charge Blade. I mean, yeah, come on, it's so good. Charge Blade in Wilds is super fun. At launch, you had like the chainsaw playstyle and ED1, ED2 into a reset into ED1, ED2, and that being super fun. Then it evolved a little bit with the speedrunning, where we're actually seeing AED in the follow-up use because of the vial pops and actually the KO nature of the head. The downside here is a lack of SAED and people missing that, the way they changed the loop of that. An element honestly not being that great for a good while there with Wilds. These days, things have changed. Element's a lot more relevant. Everyone's building artian weapons with a bit of it on, and with Charge Blade in particular, by the way, you get such a heavy boost to element that it's worth engaging with more than other weapons. Then with the vial pops being so strong for this, it's actually opened up a new playstyle, SAD. They buffed AED. They nerfed the chainsaw aspect a little bit, and this birthed the morph loop combo, where you're going from the sword and shield into a shield thrust, into an AED, into the follow-up, back into sword and shield, and then repeat. Or you could stay in the axe mode and then loop the AED. Super fun, really effective, and it means you're in sword and shield a bit more, which allows you to do those perfect guards, trigger clashes more often, be a bit more tanky in that way, which is really nice. It also reintroduced the whole rapid morph concept into your offensive decorations, which has felt great. Then in Title Update 2.5, they walked back some of the nerfs on the chainsaw stuff. So from that neutral gameplay, if you can't get the AED and follow up because it's too long, you could just go for an ED1, maybe find an ED2 at that point. The chainsaw ring is not as good as it was before the Title Update 2 nerf, but it's not as bad. It's an option. So you have like quite a lot of valid ways to play here. It feels like Charge Blade has evolved through the duration of Wilds in a positive, varied way, giving you more options that are viable. So I think it's one of the weapons that has benefited the most from the way they're doing patches and balancing updates in Wilds. But man, I'm so excited to talk about this. 3rd place, Dual Blades. 8.94% of the vote. Hell yeah. Dual Blades found itself in a weird state at the start of Wilds. Obviously the new playstyle's awesome with the way that you can break up the gameplay, demon mode to archdemon, bouncing between them, managing your demon gauge, managing your stamina through that, super satisfying. But there was some clunkiness to it, with the fact that, well, element wasn't that great, so that was terrible for Dual Blades. And the focus strike, you often didn't use it because it would backfire, putting you at the tail when you wanted to be at the head. So, with some rebalancing, we've seen some serious improvements to element hit zones in general and the element potential of this weapon. We've seen new gameplay options where you can land a perfect evade and then go straight into a Blade Dance 2, Blade Dance 3 really quick. We've seen buffs to that spiral spin that occurs after a perfect evade when you're in demon boost mode, which has been great for Omega, by the way, for some quick punish on the legs. They've made the demon boost more reliable, easier to access, and they gave us a new option with that focus strike to specifically land at the place where we started, at the wound, which has been phenomenal. This is undeniably my favorite version of Dual Blades I've ever played, and in Omega, by the way, it's been doing fantastic, and is a top weapon, I would say, for like a beginner to learn the fight, which may also explain its relevance and popularity on top of all of that. But let's now talk about SNS, that has 12.11% of the votes. Its 2nd place, Sword and Shield, is incredibly popular right now. But it was popular at the start of Wilds, as we'll look at. This is completely understandable with Omega. With SNS, you're able to quickly use items, such as Dust, to keep your friends alive. With SNS, you're able to do quick attacks that don't really get you stuck in an animation. So you're able to pull out the perfect guard, or a roll at the drop of the hat. This is unbelievable for Omega because with a lot of weapons like, you know, say the switch axe, the full release, you're stuck in a long animation and then it turns and you miss. Or it turns its attention to you and does an attack and then you get punished. SNS, there's none of that. It has less animation lock than Dual Blades, so you're able to like flow around doing these quick attacks, hitting the leg, the ideal hit zone the whole time. You ever get attention, you can perfect guard whatever it is, or roll it. The output is solid, but then it engages with the support playstyle, letting you do more of a supporty build if you want to be that for the team, which everyone appreciates in Omega. So, its output's been great, the flow and freedom of the gameplay is great, it's very forgiving and a great way to learn the fight, and everyone's pretty damn happy to have an SNS on the team. But finally, what also makes sense is the top spot. It's Greatsword, 14.44% of the votes. It's still the most popular weapon for our channel, and that makes sense. There's no shock there. Josh established himself as the greatsword main eons ago, and the whole time he's been covering Monster Hunter, he's been talking greatsword propaganda. And again, this is interesting because the speedrun rankings for Solo Omega shows how bad this weapon is for that. But it doesn't matter, because when you're playing in a team, you have the time to charge up hits. It's a bit better. It just shows that greatsword's a bit tough in Omega specifically. Greatsword's been a top running weapon for all kinds of monsters in Wilds. Like most of them, it's been top 5 or higher. Obviously, Omega's been rough for Solo, but that clearly doesn't matter. It does have access to some of the most options of the new stuff in Wilds. And with like new content, the contest for a new weapon with the mirror one, event quest special versions of greatsword. Then you've got literally Shadowbringer Man working great with a Bale set for greatsword players specifically. These guys are like permanently feasting, so I'm not surprised it's still the most popular weapon for us. So that's the overview of the poll. Pretty interesting stuff, guys. Let's now have a quick talk and look about the 6-month ranking comparison. So what we're looking at here is the popularity of the weapons 6 months ago, not long after the launch of Wilds. How popular and not popular actually were weapons? Well, for one, greatsword was our top weapon. No surprise there, exact same reasons we just talked about. But what's interesting here is the fact that Sword and Shield has established itself as our second most popular weapon as a base. That's interesting. Again, the whole state in Wilds, it's so approachable, super effective weapon, fun and reliable, great way to learn the game or a monster, especially in the context of Omega, where it's going to be a top choice for a bunch of reasons. I'm super happy to see that Dual Blades has shot up from 9th place in our community to 3rd. Let's go, man. It's in such a good state, as we just talked about. The mechanics of it are super fun. The changes they've made are super good. The element relevance is up. We're on a real high. This is great to see. Charge Blade being, 3rd to 4th isn't a major change. I do think the life cycle of Charge Blade has been incredible, as we talked about. So it makes sense. What is really sad though is how popular Switch Axe was at the launch of the game. 8.75% of the votes, down to 12th place at 6.1% of the votes of our current poll. It's such a massive fall off, man. And I think it's because everyone's just a bit over full release spam. And the lacking variety and interesting options, that weapon just doesn't encourage you to use. We've seen that hammer stocks are rising, going from nearer to the bottom to nearer to the top, which has been fantastic. These changes they've made have obviously worked. We've seen a major fall off with bows we talked about earlier. Again, one of the lesser loved weapons without any real relevant updates ever since the beta massive nerfs that took that weapon from unbelievable to maybe underperforming by comparison. But it's interesting because, again, bow is doing really well in Omega, so I don't necessarily think it needs like massive output buffs. Maybe it could do with some special moveset changes, slightly faster animations, that kind of thing. We'll see what they do. It is crazy that Lance has gained in popularity as well, as we see here. But again, I do think Omega is a major explanation for that. And while Hunting Horn is near the bottom, and is still near the bottom in the current list, it has ever so slightly gained in popularity after the buffs and changes that we've seen. Mechanically, it's in a better place than where it started. The biggest shock here though is the fact that there's more than 2 Lance players. This is getting out of hand. But yeah, there you have it. That's our look at the popularity within our community. What do you guys think? And here's the big question. Light bowgun, heavy bowgun, switch axe, bow. These are the weapons that I think need some interesting changes to boost their popularity. What would you guys like to see? Let us know, but until next time, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.